Okay, this is the first meetup of the Santa Cruz Bitcoin Meetup with a featured speaker. I'm pleased to introduce Danny Thorpe, who set up, he's the co-owner of the Quail and Thistle Tea Room in Capitola, which is the first
restaurant in Santa Cruz to accept Bitcoin.
First restaurant in Santa Cruz to accept Bitcoin. Are there any
There are
first
a couple of
retail?
businesses that accept Bitcoin before us. They were mostly massage parlors and auto mechanics.
Okay, so there were some auto mechanics. Okay, so the first restaurant in Santa Cruz County to accept Bitcoin, and he's going to be speaking about Bitcoin for merchants. Danny is also doing a stealth Bitcoin startup. I don't know if we're going to get him to talk about that, but we'll try. Please, a big hand to Danny Thorpe.
Sorry if I sit or prefer to stand. Okay, thank you. So yes, I had to change my slides. This presentation I originally did for Bitcoin of Silicon Valley back in April. And at that time, the slide said that I was a software architect at Dell, which I've been for the last 4 years. But as of July of this year, I quit my job at Dell. I went into business with a partner, and I'm now running my own startup company. As Sean mentioned, we are in deep stealth mode right now. So everything I was talking to you a couple months ago about what I wanted to do, I'm not doing that. But the company is called OpEx.io, and we are building a company using blockchain technology. So it is Bitcoin related in that regard. But the real aspect of what I want to talk to you folks about tonight is how merchants, companies that speak to retail customers, what does Bitcoin mean for a merchant? And this is drawing out of my experience as a restaurateur. My wife and I run the Quail and Thistle Tea Room. It's not a coffee shop, it's a restaurant. And we started accepting Bitcoin in February of last year, mostly on a whim. My wife is not terribly technology oriented, and I'm a technical geek. And so she just basically tolerated my suggestion to get into this space. And some of the points that we'll come across tonight are based on our discoveries in getting into this area and some of the motivations, things we figured out before we got started. So we are in Capitola, just up from Gale's Bakery, and we're open 11 to 3 Wednesday through Saturday. Wednesday through Sunday. So come down for lunch. So for business, the question is, why should I accept Bitcoin payments? Now, I want to be clear, I'm not going to explain how Bitcoin works tonight. I'm going to focus on the mechanics of what a company would need to do to accept and do payments. So as a baseline, we'll just say that Bitcoin is a way to transfer value between parties, right? We want the customer to transfer value to the company. And that's how we'll bring up our sale. Right? We want to go over how the payment system works. What is the actual mechanical exchange? What does it cost for a business to accept Bitcoin payments, particularly compared to, say, credit cards? Big cost differences. There are risks with accepting credit cards. There are risks with accepting checks. There are risks with accepting cash. There are also going to be risks with accepting Bitcoin. Benefits and target audience. So let me bring up on my phone here. Now, one of the things that you need to keep in mind when thinking and talking about Bitcoin for retail sales is that for the time being, the Bitcoin, there's a lot of technology requirement placed on the customer in a Bitcoin transaction. It's not like the customer walks up and hands you cash, or the customer walks up and hands you a credit card and the merchant takes care of all the details there. The customer needs to get involved because they have to push the funds to you. And this is an example. Here we go here. So you're a merchant, your customer's making a purchase, you need to present the bill in US dollars as usual. People don't want to know about Bitcoins, US dollars. Then the customer says, oh, I can pay in Bitcoin. He says, okay, well, here's how we'll do that. So the merchant puts in the amount of sale into some sort of Bitcoin terminal. In this case, I've got an Android phone, and I put in a US dollar amount and a little description of what the thing is, and I press next, and it goes and goes on the network, and it's talking to the network, and it's saying, okay, there's a QR code. Now this QR code embeds my business's Bitcoin address. The customer is then going to take their phone, take a picture of this QR code with their QR scanner. Presume that they have this on their app, on their phone. And that QR code will be recognized if they have a Bitcoin wallet on their phone. So there's multiple levels of technology in play here. But literally what happens next is that the customer takes a picture of this, they get a confirmation on their screen, pay $25 to this person, yes or no. They click yes, they talk to the network, we talk to the network, and it says ding, transaction complete. Okay? In all of this, the customer needs to have a smartphone, the customer needs to have a wallet installed on the phone, they need to have a QR code reader, and you need to have network connectivity, either through a Wi-Fi connection or through a cellular network. So for example, when I was working with the artists, Bonnie Doon Artist Guild up in Bonnie Doon, some of the folks were saying, oh, well, we don't take credit cards, but it'd be great if we, maybe we should take Bitcoin payments. It's like, do you have a Wi-Fi connection that your customers can use? No. Do you have cell phone reception up there? No. There's no network connection. Bitcoin needs a network connection. Okay. Yes, John?
Not entirely. Right.
Not entirely. There are offline protocols, but they're very rare and
Yes.
special. I had a conversation with a person who describes himself as a prepper, preparing for the end of days. And he hoards this and he hoards that, and he has absolutely no interest in Bitcoin. Well, why is that? Because Bitcoin requires infrastructure that won't be here when you need it. This is his answer. Okay. He's got some interest in it.
I have a question about
Yes.
the QR reader. Is there one that seems to be better than another?
There are several QR code readers on Android. I'm using QR Droid. It's the one that I picked up. It's one of the oldest ones, and it seems to do very well. And then it also will integrate with your wallet that's on your phone. If the wallet on your phone registers itself as a particular media type handler. The early Coinbase wallet did not. And so you scan it and say, I don't know what to do with this. But I think that's been fixed since.
Yeah, no, I just checked the Coinbase wallet and it had a QR code scanner. You could have done transactions then.
Oh, you want to? Sure.
Yeah.
Another nice thing, the merchant app that I was just showing you there is from Coinbase. And one of the nice things about it is that it is better than putting just a wallet on a phone and handing it to your staff. Because if it's just a wallet, money can go in and money can go out. What you want is a kiosk. You want an app that your staff cannot do anything except accept payments. So the Coinbase merchant app can be locked down with a PIN number. And when it comes up, it's in receive mode. And all it will do will receive funds. It will not allow anyone to send money.
That's handy. Good thing.
And that is a separate app on Android. It's separate from the Coinbase wallet application. So you do your wallet stuff on here, you do your merchant application, merchant stuff, and this other thing. In fact, at the tea room, we don't have a point of sale terminal, we don't have a cash register, we do things with paper tickets. And so I was trying to figure out what we're going to do to get this QR code and stuff set up. And I remembered, oh yeah, I've got this 2 generations older phone that I put in the closet. It's like, oh, we just dig this thing up, update the software, it's another Android phone, and that's all it does. It doesn't take phone calls, it doesn't have a SIM card in it, it can't take phone calls, but it's plugged in under the counter, and when we need it, we pull it out and ring up a sale. That merchant app is connected to our bank account, so we have it configured so that when we ring up a sale in Bitcoin, as soon as that Bitcoin transaction is confirmed with our backend processor, we liquidate it into US dollars. And so for most transactions, that means our exposure to Bitcoin volatility, price changes, is about 30 seconds. If we did not use a backend processor like Coinbase, if we just use a Bitcoin wallet straight up, then we would be holding Bitcoin, which is fine, but you have to understand that you will be exposed to Bitcoin volatility. The price of Bitcoin is at 470 at this particular moment, and you ring up a $2 sale or whatever for your customer, and then 3 or 4 days later, you get around to transferring that Bitcoin into US dollars, and the Bitcoin price has gone down. So you're going to get $2 for that sale. Okay, so that's the volatility that you need to aware of.
Did you find with your 30-second setup that it's just not noticeable at all?
Yes, we use Coinbase, and we just don't really see any significant loss of anything from volatility. Because Coinbase quotes as a price, and Coinbase quoted price does not move as quickly or as frequently as some of the other exchanges. And the reason for that is because Coinbase is acting as the ruling.
So, there's a fee for the transaction somebody's taking in. Maybe I'm getting ahead of
A
myself.
little bit of emphasis.
And then, but also, if I have an iPhone, it doesn't matter that it's talking to your Android.
For the QR code scanning, it doesn't matter what the smartphone is, it just needs to be a phone that can run apps and it can have a camera for taking pictures. However, Apple has been a bit hostile towards Bitcoin until very recently. So there are not as many wallets available on Apple phones as there are on Android. I think that's been changing lately. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I can comment on iOS. I actually got the blockchain wallet before Apple banned Bitcoin wallets, and I've had it on my phone for a year and a half now. They've updated it with a newer version, which I think has a poor UI actually. But on iOS, the QR readers are integrated into the wallet, so you don't have to worry about a separate app and configuring it to work with your wallet. They're built in, at least to all the wallets that I've seen. And I have a question. You said you are exposed with Coinbase to 30 seconds or so of Bitcoin volatility?
I'm not exactly sure how much exposure there is there, but Coinbase really talks it down, so it's difficult to get hard numbers on that.
I set up Lulu Carpenters with BitPay.
Yeah.
And my understanding is there's not, that I think Coinbase works in a similar way, that once they generate that QR code, they've locked in the price and they give you a 15-minute window to pay, in which they'll guarantee the price. So you're never exposed
right, so
to Bitcoin volatility.
because what they've done in that QR code, even though you told them US dollars, the QR code is denominated in Bitcoin. And so what they're saying is that for that 15-minute window, they will make good on that conversion rate. If the Bitcoin conversion rate drops precipitously in that 10 minutes, then they'll still pay out the original value. So they're taking that risk. That's true. Yeah. Good point. On this slide, the item down here, merchant sees payment arrive in their Bitcoin wallet. This is very important because if you have a network hiccup and your customer is not able to talk to the network, or you're not able to talk to the network, it's not good enough to just scan it wrong. Because if you scan it and nothing happens, you haven't received payment. You also have to be careful on the other side, though, which is if you scan it and you get no confirmation and you scan it again, it may go through twice.
Oh.
We had this come up in conversation in April when I did this presentation. Another one was at a coffee shop and she paid 3 times for coffee and had to go through some hoops to get it sorted out.
So the QR code doesn't have a unique identifier that none of the merchant sorts?
The QR code is unique enough, but apparently the back end can't distinguish between the different codes.
Yeah, it could be a timestamp. First visit 15 minutes. That timestamp you think would be?
Well, each QR code should be a unique address, so that would be your unique signature. So yeah, the back-end processor can probably help with that and keep leading out.
If the back-end processor did its job, it would say, hey,
Which I think-
you already paid it, I'm not going to give you a new QR code.
Because it's the same address, it's the same amount, it's for the same account. That looks like.
Yeah, you think that that would be a
You get duplicate checks like that out of your bank for paper checks as well.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Is the currency locked into US dollars, or is it open to not only foreign currencies, but also complementary currencies?
Right, so for Coinbase, Coinbase is a strictly US-based exchange, so they're locked into US dollar. But there are other payment processors. I think BitPay might be able to handle other But largely, several of these payment processors are start up in local regions, so there's very different lay of the land in Europe, for example, different payment processors there. But yes, Bitcoin is fiat free, fiat agnostic. So as long as you can find somebody that will convert it to and from a particular currency, you can take a Bitcoin out.
It's all about the routing, right? You can route currency through any number of currencies.
Gateways.
Gateways.
Coinbase just opened up in Europe. I don't know if the
Yeah. Also, there's things called like Circle, which purports, and BitReserve. BitReserve in particular is specifically straddling the different currency market. So you deposit in Bitcoin, but you can tell that you want to save it and store it in denominated US dollars, or it's denominated in pounds, or denominated in yen. And then if the Bitcoin prices change, well, now you can convert back to Bitcoin and make a profit or something like that. And they are doing derivatives on the back end. So big difference between credit cards and Bitcoin is that credit cards are a pool technology. You give them your account number, the bank goes and pulls out of your account or out of your credit line and pays the merchant. You don't really have any say in that other than to sign the disclosure at the beginning. The Bitcoin is a push transaction. The customer has to release the funds themselves. No one else can do that. And that's where this slightly higher technology requirements for now. There are efforts being made to reduce that requirement. For example, Circle will probably be one of the companies that will introduce a more credit card-like pool technology using Bitcoin because they hold Bitcoin wallet for you. When your Bitcoin wallet exists only on your phone, you are the sole responsibility for that account, which is a plus and minus. We're seeing a lot more services popping up now for Bitcoin that are offering to be big bank style services for your average Joe who doesn't care about the actual currency. So that's one of the things that's happening now. So the costs. There is, just to put a transaction on the Bitcoin network, there is an optional requested transaction fee of about 2.5 cents, which you can opt out of if you want to. And what that basically does is prioritize your transaction. If you do not put a transaction fee in there, then it may take longer for that transaction to clear. This was the case with the lady in April when she couldn't get her coffee paid for. She configured her wallet to not include a transaction fee, which is part of the reason why it wasn't getting confirmed. So there's this network transaction fee, and that's always there in the background. But on top of that, the question is, well, if you're using one of these payment processors, what do they charge? And these numbers are a little bit out of date. Coinbase is basically no charge for transactions up to $1 million per month in sales. No monthly fee. Already, that is radically different from a credit card processor. BitPay, at that time, they were talking about plans at 30 months for large daily volume. A couple of months ago, they announced that they would not be charging fees for any transactions at any volume because they're making enough money off the back end when they do the exchange themselves. So the currency exchange, they nudge the transaction rate there so they can make the money on that.
So they're making money on the little transaction agreement, like the 2.5 cents.
They're making money when they convert the Bitcoin into US dollars.
Oh.
Or into euros or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, so there is an effective fee. It's the cost.
There's,
It's their arbitrage.
There is friction.
Yeah. So if you use BitPay to receive payments and you hold in Bitcoin,
Yeah.
then they would not harvest that. They would only, and then you withdraw in Bitcoin. But if you use their service to liquidate the Bitcoin receipts into US dollars, that's where they will nudge the conversion rate slightly in their favor. And for the volume of business that a retail merchant is likely to see with Bitcoin, it's negligible. On their side, with the millions of transactions that they do, it's significant for them to do that nudge. But they no longer require monthly fees or anything like that. Most of these things are commoditization of this space has already happened. There used to be payment services that charged $10 a month, just like a credit card company, and they were immediately wiped out. So it's already gone. I think, again, this is comparing Coinbase, which is a processor, and BitPay, which is a processor. There's several other processors out there. Comparing that to a plain wallet, just taking the Bitcoin client on a PC and doing payments through that. There's no fee to receive transactions into your wallet. The sender is responsible for paying the network transaction fee, and that's optional.
You're talking about the digital desktop plain wallet or just plain wallet?
You can get a plain wallet for the phone. It's not tied to Coinbase. Or it's like blockchain has a wallet for the phone. It's tied to their account. Or for a PC-based Bitcoin client there.
You define it as just not one of the major players, or is it third
It's
party?
completely standalone.
Just using your own wallet, just using your own Bitcoin wallet, installing software yourself and creating an address and giving it to the customer.
You can do peer-to-peer.
Not using the currency conversion.
Gotcha.
into
It's a
the
Bitcoin
account.
wallet.
It's a Bitcoin wallet, yeah. As opposed to a Coinbase wallet or a BitPay wallet, which are linked to their services. Plain wallet is used for peer-to-peer transactions, where all you need is to know the recipient's address, and you can send them currency. So there's a chart for the cost comparisons. Everything's so correct. So for a credit card, your transaction fee, which you probably all heard about, is 1.5 to 4% plus a minimum of 30 cents, which is why credit cards are not used for vending machines. You buy 45-cent can of Coke, and you card charge 30 cents for the transaction.
Unless you like yours.
Okay, but that's crazy, like, if I buy an hour of parking and I use my credit card, it's 50 cents. The city of Santa Cruz is making no money on
Yeah,
it.
and that's the wheels of the old machine.
Yeah.
It's an artifact of the old machine. So, there's a lot of talk about micropayments and high ease of flow for very, very small payments. Like, you go into a coffee shop and the coffee shop wants to monetize their Wi-Fi connection. Well, right now, you either have to buy a cup of coffee and get the receipt that has the number on it so you can use the passcode, or they just give it away. What if there was something that the network set up so that you could pay a penny per kilobyte or a penny per megabyte of use? And how would that work? And there have been some technology discussions along this way. I don't know if that something like that. So microtransactions are an interesting area for Bitcoin. Monthly fees. Credit card companies always charge a monthly fee minimum. Now, there's an interesting difference with debit cards. A credit card, you have variable percentage per transaction. Debit cards, turns out, are fixed cost, which surprised me. It's a maximum of 25 cents per transaction in the US. And that's why if I'm buying from a local vendor or a local merchant and they offer the option of debit or credit, I say, well, I'll take debit because then I'm saving them 2%, 3%. The credit cards that have the highest percentage rates, charges to the merchant, are the rewards cards. The rewards that you get come straight out of the merchant's pocket. At the merchant, it hurts. Credit cards have chargebacks, which is that the customer receives the goods, they're not happy with it, they call the credit card company, they get their money back. The credit card company takes the money out of the merchant's account, and there's nothing the merchant can do about it. Whether the merchant gets the merchandise back or not. It's customer service relations to make the customer happy. With the debit card, chargebacks are extremely rare because you had to enter a PIN code to get that transaction going. Another reason for the chargebacks on credit cards is because of fraud. It's a sign and run case, a situation where you just do a signature, and the fraud is outrageous on that stuff right now. No chargebacks on cash. Cash is gone, cash is across the barrelhead, you're not going to get it back. No chargebacks on Bitcoin. You can't undo a Bitcoin transaction after the fact. Security risks. Theft, obviously, stolen card, customer identity theft. When you're handing your credit card over to the merchant, you're trusting the merchant to handle that information appropriately. Panda Express, Target, a number of other retailers that have had their servers compromised, and whoever walks off with all of the credit card numbers and the people's names and addresses and phone numbers, because your name and address is used to validate who you are when you're making a credit card transaction. So, for me personally, I work in the identity security industry. I'm a fan of Bitcoin simply because there's no identity theft that can ever be associated with it. Bitcoin account numbers have no name and address associated with them, unless you voluntarily provide it. Fraudulent charges are very rare on debit cards. You do have security risks with cash, such as robbery, burglary, being held up. And then with Bitcoin, your security risk is, what if you lose your money? What if you've got your wallet on your phone, and you moved 25 Bitcoins, $10,000 or so, into that wallet that's on this phone, and then this phone gets dropped in the toilet. How do you get those Bitcoins back?
You can't.
Unless you made some sort of backup plan.
Well, what if you have it on an online account, like
If your wallet is fronting for an online account, then you're okay. You've only lost the front, you haven't lost the wallet. But if the wallet is actually stored on your mobile device or on your PC at home, if your PC at home has your Bitcoin QT client and the hard drive goes south, the private keys are on that machine. Did you back them up? Did you print them out on paper? It's the private keys that you need to recover them. Now, if you have those private keys, you can go to another machine, put in those private keys, talk to the network that's out there, and go claim those things as your own again. Because nothing is stored on your local machine other than your keys. All the transactions, all the record of movement of information is stored out in the cloud, in the network, in the internet. The only thing that is stored locally is the key that you use to prove who you are.
So conversely, if you're storing those keys on iCloud, which of course has never been hacked, are those then, is that then a theft or a security risk?
Hackers like Bitcoin private keys even more than naked photos of celebrities.
Yep.
Well,
So, so what you have to ask is, when you're using an online wallet, how do they store the private keys? And there are a variety of
and
different
what
ways.
is my access to them?
Exactly. So, for example,
You know my mother's maiden name, you're probably in.
right. So, on, for example, blockchain, they implement a system where they never know your private key. It's generated by your local machine and encrypted, and it's stored on their system. So, assuming that encryption works, they cannot, and nobody else that has access to the system can get to those private keys. So that's pretty good. Then the question is, well, what if I forget my password? How do I recover from that? And they, for a long time, they didn't have a recovery plan for that. So watch out. But there are now systems that will offer print this 25-digit thing out. And if you forget your password, give us the 25-digit thing, and we'll recover, something like that.
What do you recommend as the best solution for that kind of backup?
Well, having lost a number of phones already, I definitely would not recommend anything that stores things exclusively on the phone. That you're going to need to have some sort of web front. Coinbase is the service that we use. It seems to work fine, but Coinbase is working as a large bank. They're thinking in the mindset of Chase and JP Morgan. And for some Bitcoin advocates, that's a problem. Not doesn't bother me. Basically, you're trusting that Coinbase is going to do the appropriate things with your funds. And most of the time, that's fine. Not so good with knockoffs. We had the same trust issue going on there, and knockoffs blew it. Both their own incompetence and bad coding and so forth, and they violated that customer trust. One of the strengths of Bitcoin is that it makes possible the option of being able to do these transactions without having to place trust in a single bank. And that's tangentially related to what my startup company is.
And then after Andy's talk, we can talk some more about digital wallets and security mechanisms. It's a big topic.
Yeah.
We can do that.
I just got mine on my phone,
Well, and another reason why you don't often see strictly standalone wallets on a mobile device is because the standalone wallet needs to have access to the entire blockchain, which is now over 24 gigabytes in total storage. So when you start up a Bitcoin client on your PC, it may be 3 days of downloading and synchronizing before it is So for cost comparisons, last one here, point of sale equipment. For the credit card, you get like a $300 machine, which usually wrapped up in the cost of the service. Square or Swiper cost $10. Debit card, the same machine as a credit card machine. With Bitcoin, I've been talking about using a smartphone as your point of sale equipment, but there are point of sale software systems that are already incorporating Bitcoin. So for example, Rebel Systems makes a point of sale system for the iPad that a restaurant can set up and do restaurant sales and so forth. And they've added a module to that thing so that you can now generate the QR code from that app. So it's all wrapped up into your accounting system at that point. Very nice. There's probably 3 or 4 others that have integrated that.
How about an e-commerce kind of thing? I sell stuff over the internet.
Right, so for e-commerce, what you want to have as an option there is to put a QR code on the screen, on a PC screen, and have the customer take a picture of it with their smartphone. If they're shopping from their smartphone, that doesn't help. But if they're shopping from their smartphone, there's the Bitcoin protocol, payment protocol, which your smartphone is in the browser, it browses to a particular URL that your site presents, and that includes the payment information and all that stuff, so it can be done.
So they're shopping from their browser.
Yeah. So
they're not, I
basically,
don't think they're holding their smartphone up to this.
okay, that was a kiosk kind of thing, but there are a couple of e-commerce systems out there that have Bitcoin plugins available. They may not be offered by the e-commerce vendor, and they may be third-party plugins. And then you have to wonder, does the code review and where's the funds going and that sort of thing. But yes, there are options there.
Coinbase just has a button you can stick on your web page, and it'll go directly to the site. That's probably what we're seeing.
Cost comparisons with credit cards, it also scales with the size of transactions. So, for example, 1 to 4% on $10,000 purchase is $150 to $400 in transaction fees. If you're selling a $10,000 jewelry that you got a 50% markup, $400 shave is not too bad. But if it's a $10,000 used car and your markup is only $500, $400 shave is pretty awful, which is why not a lot of card dealers accept credit cards. Debit cards cannot be used for $10,000 purchases. It's written into the network. Refused. For cash, if you're doing $10,000, I hope you have some security with it. With Bitcoin, it's the same as anything at any scale. The only difference with Bitcoin is that when you're making a payment in Bitcoin, you're having to draw from monies that you received in earlier payments. Basically, if you receive money in 5 or 6 transactions, and now you're going to spend all of that on one transaction, your one outgoing transaction is going to have 5 references to the previous incoming transactions, right? That creates data that is a size, and that is what the network transaction fee is based on. So, for example, if you're running a little miner that generates 50 altcoins every 10 minutes or so on some backwards network, you could have 2,000 or 3,000 of these little coins massed up. And then if you try to spend 2,000 of those coins, your network transaction fee may be 35 or 40 cents because it's a huge transaction to reference all those little things. What you sometimes see is before someone makes a large purchase, they'll transfer money to themselves to assimilate all of these multiple transactions into one transaction and then refer to that one transaction to make the next payment. That also hides your payment. So we talked about this earlier, customer requirements are much higher for Bitcoin, and so you need to think about who your customers are and is this going to work for them. For the tea room, we sort of just punted and said we hope so. For a retail establishment that has a fairly high technical user base, Bitcoin is not going to be that alien. For a retail operation that has a very low technical user base, then Bitcoin is going to be out of reach. Okay? If you're selling cell phones, probably not a bad match. If you're selling ice cream, maybe not. So what do you need as a merchant to do Bitcoin payments? Bitcoin support in your point of sale system, which would be nice if it's integrated, because then it just shows up in your accounts as any other sort of transaction. Or you need to go out of band and have a smartphone app, either iOS now or Android, lots and lots of Android apps. You also need to have internet access at the point of sale. And this can be a blocker, as I mentioned to Bonnie Doon. The folks up there just simply don't have the option, because they don't have cell signal and they weren't willing to open up their Wi-Fi. So there it is. Also, it's not just that you, the retailer, need to have internet access, but also the customer needs to have internet access, which is part of the reason why we offer free Wi-Fi. That's cheaper. So benefits of accepting Bitcoin: lower transaction costs, faster clearing. We didn't talk earlier that credit card payments take 3 to 4 days to clear. Now, whether that's the actual network or whether that's the bank holding your money because they can, doesn't really make a
And then
difference.
make it interest or something, probably quickly put it into a money market, make a few bucks. and then-
It's all about the flow. So, I mean, at our restaurant, we run Tuesday through Sunday, and basically none of the week's receipts show up in our account until the following Monday. And then it's sort of open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. With Bitcoin, you're looking for 6 confirmations, which at a 10-minute interval would be about 1 hour. So if you're selling a cup of coffee, it's going to be difficult to get the customer to hang around until all that confirms. But if you're selling a boat, take them for a tour, take them for a ride, or something like that. It's no different than if you're accepting a paper check. If you're accepting a paper check for somebody for $10, how much are you going to worry about whether it's good or not? Compared to receiving a paper check for $100,000. You're not going to let go of whatever it is until that check actually clears the bank. And clears it good, because sometimes they come back. Another benefit of Bitcoin is there's no chargebacks.
A footnote on that, though, when you use the payment processors like BitPay or Coinbase, they guarantee the transaction right away.
But there's a scale. They guarantee the transactions up to a certain size, and after that, they're going to hold it.
Okay.
So for small transaction, coffee shop type stuff, they're happy to guarantee that because it's really nothing off the back. But if you go out and buy a Maserati, I don't think Coinbase is going to back
Yes.
that themselves. They're going to hold it.
Yes.
And they'll hold it for, like you said, an hour or so?
I don't think there's any reason to hold it for more than that. Yeah. Compared to something like international wire transfer, which would take a week. And this is a wire transfer, it's supposed to be electronic. Because somebody has to do a physical thing at one end, and it gets transmitted, and then somebody has to do a physical thing at the other end. I hope that they talk the same language. Minimal exposure to volatility if you're using a back-end processor. So you really don't have to be worried about the Bitcoin prices changing to you as a merchant. It really doesn't make any difference. However, volatility does impact the customer. There's no way right now for the customer to avoid or to mitigate that volatility. There are solutions coming, but they're not here yet.
But volatility only up to that hour, right? Volatility for the customer paying is still contained within an hour period?
No, the volatility for the customer is the fact that they have to hold Bitcoin in order to make a payment. So they're holding Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin price is doing this.
Okay.
So there's not a really good solution yet for the customer that says, I have Polish latkes or whatever they are, and I want to buy this US dollar cup of coffee. I can do it through Bitcoin, but to do that, I have to hold Bitcoin. I can't just take it directly out of my Polish account and then use Bitcoin as the transfer.
It's equivalent of currency, but if you're holding foreign currency.
Yeah.
And what's the range of fluctuation on the volatility of Bitcoin?
And the volatility is not as bad now as it was a year ago. There were $100 swings a year ago. Today, I think it's swing about 40 points, $40, 10%. 10%.
In a day.
In a day. Yeah. So compared to Forex exchange, it's huge. But compared to US dollar versus British pound, I mean, those can be that much.
Sure.
Yeah. Another benefit that we've talked about so far is that you still, even today, at this later date, you have a captive audience that you're going to talk about. Folks that are into Bitcoin that basically they got this stuff. Money only has value if you can spend it. So what can I do with this? And that's what you need to think about as a merchant is your real primary benefit. And so there's this joke about, shut up, take my money. I want to spend it. with Bitcoin, again, compared to traditional networks, clearing happens in seconds. That is, that the transaction has been recognized on the network as being out there and valid, and will be first confirmation, first validation is in about 5 minutes. 10-minute interval, average 5 minutes. You're looking for 6 confirmations for absolute solidity. That means that if someone wanted to fraudulently reverse your transaction or fraudulently spend that money, they would need to mock the entire network 6 times, which is astronomically impossible in mathematics. So 6 is really good confirmation measure. Sweeping to US dollars, if you have a payment processor and you have them converted to US dollars and deposited into your account, well, now you're on the traditional banking network. It takes 3 days. If you're receiving Bitcoin, and as a business you have suppliers that you can purchase things in Bitcoin, you can turn around your revenues and make purchases the same day. You cannot do that with any of the other networks. Okay, even with cash. Yes.
So where is this getting traction? Like your little shop, it's awesome, I mean, but I would have no idea that you guys offer that. And like, what different markets and areas are?
So the Bitcoin community is a very close-knit and
It's through your tech.
yeah, it's through the tech
Your
network.
experience, okay.
That you're tapping into a very niche market, very clear. Bitcoin has not been going mainstream very much. I mean, it's appeared in mainstream media, but it isn't really something that grandma from Illinois is going to be interested in at all, really.
Or even financial wizards lawyers or whatever. There's lots of people.
Yeah, the place where Bitcoin is seeing adoption, which is really not within our visibility here in the nice, comfortable United States, but in places where the local currency is crap, Bitcoin looks really good, even with the volatility. I mean, Argentina devalued their currency tenfold or 100-fold.
It's about 30% of mine.
Yeah. And so if you've got money sitting in the bank in Argentina, you're a fool. As opposed to if you can find somebody who will convert that into Bitcoin, probably at a discount, but then you've got this thing in Bitcoin, and it doesn't devalue at the same rate.
So it could act as a massive stabilization tool as well.
The big spikes in activity in Bitcoin have been coincident with major upheavals in the financial markets. Cyprus last year, Argentina beginning of this year. With all of the chaos and so forth going on in the Middle East, there's been Bitcoin activity around that as well. And it's not, I think it's because a certain percentage, a small portion of the market is looking for an exit. In the Argentine devaluation, not only did they devalue the currency, but the government also cut off all the exits. You could not transfer your money out prior to the devaluation. But they couldn't stop a peer-to-peer transaction to buy Bitcoin and transfer the Bitcoin to the Swiss bank account or something like that. So there's been some activity on that.
Sorry.
No, it just is that our next speaker in November will be talking about how they're actually putting money into a whole island. They've dropped Bitcoin into a whole island, and they're watching how that's going to be interactive.
There's speculation about the Scottish independence referendum and how that vote goes. One of the radical discussions on that is what currency will they use. It's like, well, we should make it Bitcoin.
This is what, the Iceland coin called? The Iceland coin?
The Iceland coin is a very peculiar one, the Aurora coin, because it was created without the blessing of the Icelandic government after the Icelandic government had outlawed cryptocurrencies. So that was a bit of a just a footnote on that. So there's Bitcoin, and then there's everything else, in my opinion. There are tons of alternate currencies, 500, 600 plus alternate currencies. All you have to do to create the alt currency is download the Bitcoin source and change a couple of lines and change your name. And so it's that easy. And in my opinion, the alt currencies are great because they are a petri dish. They're a lab for experimenting with ideas before putting them into implementation on the real thing. But in terms of the money that's out there in the markets, this is Bitcoin, this is everything else combined. Even Litecoin is very, very small compared to Bitcoin. Confirmation requirements, again, the scale of this transaction should be part of your criteria. If it's a $5 transaction, not so really so worried about confirmations. $10,000 transaction, you want to have to sit down and take them to dinner while it confirms. Bitcoin transactions are days faster than anything else, and sometimes weeks faster. So another market that would benefit more from Bitcoin than Santa Cruz Coffee Exchange would be international payments. If your company for business is doing transactions across national boundaries, moving money is slow, to say the least.
Just some experience on that. The problem, because I work with companies that do international wires frequently, and it's hard to find a trustworthy gateway on either side that will convert you back out of Bitcoin to fiat. And so unless they're willing to take Bitcoin themselves, then it's more problematic. And then it's like 3 days. It's honestly what it takes a wire to go from one place to another.
So another avenue to think about, just as Sam was saying here, is business to business. You know, can you use your Bitcoin with other businesses, your suppliers, your vendors, will your landlord accept rent in Bitcoin? There are a few Bitcoin-based companies like blockchain that don't have a regular bank account. They do all of their transactions in Bitcoin, and so they negotiate with their landlord so that they pay their rent in Bitcoin. They pay their employees in Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, that those people then go to an exchange and they convert back into US dollars so they can actually use it. So thinking about credit applications, where does invoicing and net 30 comes from? It comes from the old slow system because you simply could not make a payment that quickly. So you get an invoice and you talk to your bank, talk to their bank, and Bitcoin transactions can just wipe all of that away. It's essentially, it is literally a cash transaction. So in that light, you should be careful about, do you pay in advance and hope they ship it, or do you pay upon receipt? Probably want to pay upon receipt. There's also escrow services that will mitigate in these cases, so that you don't advance the cash and then have no recourse when you can't get the money back.
Just another point, I just looked over a contract with SanDisk for somebody. They're 90 days after the receipt of the goods. Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, the international sales, Bitcoin efficiencies are amplified with international sales. It's very important, though, don't try to do anything squirrely or creative. Get everything above board, because international sales transactions are where most of the scrutiny is. Regulatory, legal, police forces, and so forth. So keep real names, real addresses, real products.
Are there banks that pay interest if you stock? You said you could put your money to work when you talked about buying from suppliers, but how about banks that give out loans and take the money?
There are a few companies, not banks, stay away from Bitcoin, but there are a few companies that are trying to offer, getting these things started, of doing a peer-to-peer lending network using Bitcoin, which is sort of like the concept of the peer-to-peer venture, where you're helping out a small shopkeeper in about $1,000. There are a few exchanges that pay interest on your holdings.
Okay.
The caveat is that they're holding your money.
Yeah, right.
Which is kind of counter to the Bitcoin gestalt. That there ought to be a way that you can do transactions without having to trust them to hold your money. That's where knockoffs fail most grandly, because they were holding your money, and that was the problem. So bonuses to businesses that adopt Bitcoin, media coverage, it's still pretty thin as to who's out there accepting Bitcoin. So you have a horn to blow. You can toot your horn. Even at this date, it's kind of simmered down a little bit in the media because they found other things to scream about. But it's still an opportunity. You have a fairly well-defined targeted audience. It is a technical audience. And if we had a restaurant in Missouri, I would never bother with Bitcoin because there just isn't the user base that we have right here in San Jose. And the entire Bay Area, Santa Cruz itself, a little bit down into Monterey.
Is there a Bitcoin directory?
Yes. There is, I'll have to look it up. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but there is a map that shows Bitcoin businesses in your geographic area.
There's multiple maps. There's one in the new BitPay wallet.
Oh.
The map is, they changed the UI of the map in, I think. I'm
Well,
not
I
crazy
think a
about the
lot
other
of, there may
changes.
be multiple apps. I think they're feeding them the same data feed because you register in one place and you show up in others.
Okay.
But yes, as a business, if you start to accept Bitcoin, you need to hunt these things down and get yourself listed there because they will list you. They'd be happy to list you. I got an email from some guy in Australia who wanted to know if we would be interested in being listed on their site. Sure, we are.
Right.
Yeah, that
When
feeds
you
into
come
this.
to Santa Cruz.
Yelp, I believe, now has it,
Yes.
takes Bitcoin.
Yelp,
Yelp,
you have to dig for it in in the business page where you're configuring your Yelp page. There's a section where you talk about attributes, has handicap access, accepts dogs, kid friendly. Down at the very, very bottom is accepts Bitcoin.
Huh.
So you tick that off and it shows up on your Yelp profile.
That would be another good thing for our Facebook page, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except dogs carrying Bitcoins.
Yeah. Handicapped dogs.
Just from our personal experience with Bitcoin, and slightly based on the Bitcoin audience itself, you're looking at a customer base that is above average income, above average education, and technically savvy. And in most businesses, that makes for a better sale.
Yeah, yeah.
Again, if your business caters to a market that does not mesh well with this kind of audience, maybe Bitcoin isn't that great of a solution.
Right.
I don't know. So on the free media thing, we rolled out our announcement that we were accepting Bitcoin on Friday in February. And we sent out the notices and did our website update and so on and so forth. And then Monday morning, Mt. Gox published their announcement that they were closing. And they were going bankrupt and all your money is gone. And I was like, oh no. Not because I had accounts in Mt. Gox, but because this is a really bad press day. And it's not a great time to be putting out daisies and so forth and advertising. And as is often the case with media coverage, every media coverage is good coverage. What happened was that the local news outlets were looking for commentary, people to talk to, real people on the street kind of thing. And they did a Google search, and we came up with Google search as Bitcoin and restaurant in Santa Cruz. And so we got 3 phone calls, 2 mentions in the newspapers, and 1 TV spot.
Wow.
All three. Yeah.
Within a week of our announcement. Now, granted, that's not typical, but still, there are opportunities. Kind of working.
Well, it's similar to businesses who are going green,
Yes.
So we're getting singled out too.
Now, with all of the hype and hyperbole that goes on with Bitcoin, it's important to set reasonable expectations for your business accepting Bitcoin. Some folks would have you think that, oh, you're ready to accept Bitcoin and the money's just going to come rolling in. Realistically, and even if using Overstock as an example, Overstock began accepting Bitcoin in January this year, and a month or so later they said, hey, we have $1 million in sales in Bitcoin. And all of the mom and pop outlets were saying, wow, $1 million in Bitcoin sales, we could do that, that would be great. But that's $100 million that month, so they had a 1% bump. So, on the scale of Overstock.com, it's not huge, but it's $1 million more than they probably would have otherwise. Now, the question of whether that's cannibalizing their dollar sales or their euro sales, we don't know. But the biggest thing for you as a business with Bitcoin is that it enables you to connect, to create a channel for communication with an audience that you probably wouldn't otherwise be able to get the attention of. It's a way to connect with folks that are looking for ways to spend their funds, and introducing yourself. You still have to win the sale.
terms of price point for like volume of sales or volume of transactions?
You know, for the technical hazards and so forth, I would say that at the low end, the $2 to $5 end of the spectrum would be frustrating for the merchant, just because of all the overhead of getting into the system using Bitcoin transactions and whatnot. And at the high end, I mean, there's really no downside to saying, yeah, we'll take Bitcoin as our real estate purchase. There have been houses and cars and boats and so forth sold with Bitcoin, even here in the US.
There's no fear factor at that end, so it's wide open.
However, do keep in mind though that with larger transaction sizes, you need to check with local regulatory bodies or a lawyer because there are anti-money laundering regulations and they do not exempt individuals. So there's a couple of folks over in Florida that were doing Bitcoin exchange and a couple of those transactions were over $10,000 and now the feds are coming down on them for not being registered money handlers. Now they'll probably be able to squeak by on that. There's a lot of community support behind it. But when your dollar amount gets above 10,000, either one transaction over a period of a couple of days, you need to make preparations. And back to your question, I personally don't think that any of the Bitcoin enthusiasts that would be coming up to a retail establishment is likely to have more than $1,000 in their Bitcoin account. It's small. I mean, there's big whales out there, sure. Most folks are just something like that. So, you know, ultimately, all this is about choice, giving the customers more choices. This is not about replacing dollars or replacing credit cards. This is adding another option to your payment systems. So, for example, we use a credit card processor in our restaurant that we can accept 7 credit cards, seven credit card networks. And we see MasterCard Visa on a daily basis. We see American Express on a weekly basis. I think we've had our second Discover Card transaction in 2 years, and we have yet to see Bank of China. But yet, we accept Bank of China. So credit card, Bitcoin on that scale is better than 2 of them, 2 of the 5, right? Better than American Express, better than Discover, better than Bank of China. So it's creating more opportunities for your customers, making it easier for customers to pay the way they want to pay. Why should we expect Bitcoin payments? Transaction costs, fast clearing, low risk, qualified customers, and the extra boost of media coverage. But the real question that you ought to have now is why aren't we taking Bitcoin payments? Questions?
Second to last slide, second to last statement, where you said Bitcoin's at the scale of, you were comparing it to the credit cards that you take. And you said it's not as good as the first 2, but it's better than the other 2. So Bitcoin's at this scale makes sense. But
well, that goes to setting expectations that, you know, when I actually was setting up this Bitcoin for the restaurant and having to placate my technology phobic wife the whole time, I was not genuinely believing that we would actually receive any payments, any sales for 6 months. Quite frankly, we were doing it for the media splash, and it worked. It worked better than I expected, but it also, we actually did receive customers sooner than I would have expected.
Okay, so it was the quantity of customers,
Yeah.
or the count per week, or
Okay.
so not the cost of the transaction.
No, not the cost of transaction. With the credit cards that we see MasterCard Visa all the time, we see American Express fairly regularly. We almost never see these other credit cards. We see Bitcoin more regularly than we see these other cards. So in terms of, in this community, in this area, Bitcoin has a higher frequency than a Discover Card or bank. What we have not seen that we've been looking for, I've been looking for, are international visitors. All the customers that we've seen with Bitcoin have been either local or regional. Folks coming down from the Bay Area, primarily because they got Bitcoin. Let's make a little road trip and go spend some Bitcoin on lunch. Let's go have lunch. And they came down.
somebody needs to make a book, California on 0.1 Bitcoin per day, or something like that, and list, it's the Bitcoin tour book for California.
Bitcoin tourism. So
Do it.
we've seen regional tourism to about the same degree that we see tea tourism. There are some cultures about tea rooms, they're looking for English tea rooms, and we get folks from Benicia, from San Francisco, from Monterey, and beyond that come to check out our tea room just because it's an English tea room. And we've actually got a couple of regulars now who do that. And my wife and I do the same thing, reciprocate when we go out traveling. We'll be going out and say, is there a tea room around here? Let's go find out. And we go search online, there's a particular website for it, and we'll go drop in and just have tea someplace because that's what we do. And I think there's an opportunity to do something with that with Bitcoin, the Bitcoin tourism. But what I have not seen is someone coming from overseas to our restaurant saying, I prefer to pay with Bitcoin because then I don't have to pay exchange rates. Because I've got money.
That's interesting. Yeah.
We haven't seen that.
So I have an idea for our Bitcoin Meetup group, and the idea is that we have, I can't open other names, but I'm saying let's call it the Bitcoin Love Bomb, where we get a bunch of people from our Meetup group, and we go patronize a local business that takes Bitcoin. So you might want to give your wife advance notice, but Deborah proposes that the first business we do this to be
That would be awesome.
the Quail and the Thistle. So we're going to have to set up a Bitcoin Santa Cruz Meetup
Love bomb.
love bomb and field trip to Capitola to patronize
That's awesome.
Yeah.
the Quail and the Thistle.
Yeah.
Who would be into doing that?
Sure.
Me.
All right. Well,
Michelle's putting her hand up, she just doesn't know yet.
I'll
Hey, but one of the questions, I didn't catch any conversation about paying taxes.
Taxes haven't changed.
Pardon
You
me?
pay tax on the transaction, not the currency.
Right.
So.
Which transaction though?
The,
Which transaction?
US dollar. So-
When it goes from Bitcoin to US dollar, that's when your tax liability hits, or when you take the Bitcoin for the product?
So I'm not a tax attorney, but I would recommend that you take the tax at the point of sale, not at the conversions and currencies that are behind the scenes. So you present the bill as $25 in goods sold, you pay your tax on that. Now, you pay receipt payment at Bitcoin, $25 US equivalent, and that may be more or less down the line, but the actual goods sold are $25, that's what you pay sales tax on.
So you're just putting the transaction into your till as if it were
Yes.
cash?
Yes.
But you could.
And also, just realize, distinguish there, I'm thinking in terms of sales tax. Income tax is a different question altogether.
Right, well, right, so how does that work?
but it would be the same. I think it would be the same.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you hold Bitcoins and you spend those Bitcoins and they've appreciated, you owe capital gains
or
on that appreciation.
depreciated.
If you depreciate, I don't know if you can write it off. They kind of have,
Any other capital loss?
you do have a capital loss.
This is kind of unfair.
So Sam is
Finance guy.
a finance guy. So if you have finance questions around Bitcoin, Sam's your guy.
The federal government, within the Department of Treasury, you've got the IRS that says that Bitcoin is an asset and is treated as capital gains. In the same government branch, you've got the Treasury,
Justice,
Justice,
Department of
that
Justice.
says it's a currency, it's not property. And so it's subject to money laundering and other types of regulations.
Yeah.
So these guys are talking.
Yeah, the IRS wants a cut of the upside of the volatility. The Justice Department wants to regulate it as money because they.
Now, in terms of income, personal income versus capital gains, I mean, for a lot of folks, the capital gains would be a lower tax rate, so that's not a bad thing. But the paperwork is ridiculous. It's outrageous amount of paperwork we have to generate to keep track of that. There are a few startups out there that are offering, trying to solve that, saying they will look at your blockchain transactions, your history, on the public network. You tell them what your addresses are, and they go out and they find the transactions, and they will attempt to work out your basis and your capital gains at tax time. I don't know how successful they'll be, and they seem to be very vulnerable to changes in the tax code, but there is.
Do you do cash back for customers?
If we have a big party, we might.
I'm sorry?
A cashback for customers?
You know, like, I
company could do that. But again, when it gets up into volume, then you have to watch out for the money laundering and money transfer.
Like 10 grand back.
So, one of the points you mentioned earlier about money transmitter licensing and so forth, one of the little tiny clauses that I don't think many people have, one of the little clauses in the federal regs that I don't think many people have jumped on is that if you are moving money from one place to another, like a money order or Western Union or something like that, you're a money transmitter.
I think it's called a money services business.
There's money services business and then there's money transmitter.
Oh, there's different.
Different tiers, yeah.
Okay.
Then, you know, they're gonna want reports, so they're gonna want to know who the source is and who the destination is and all this stuff. And if you don't have information, they will come down on your head. Almost as bad as the ATM. But there's a subclause in there that says if you are acting as a sole agent, if you are acting as an agent exclusively for a licensed money transmitter, then you do not need to have a money transmitter license.
Right.
So if you want to set up an ATM, and that would probably can be considered a money transmitter, you need to have a partner, either a bank or a liquor store that has a money order business or a post office. And if you can act as their agent, get it in writing that you are serving as their agent, then you're writing on their license.
And they're taking that risk, though.
Yeah.
They're probably gonna ask for a cut.
So look at, you're on, that's
There you are,
blockchain.
in the map on blockchain wallet.
There we are. Very cool.
Yeah.
So that must be the one that has the common back end, because the name of the service that it first mentioned is a very strange name. I'll have to find it. But yeah.
So any other direct questions on the talk? I'm thinking of asking our videographer Katie to end the video session. We can continue to do some informal questions and networking, but I think,
I have one more.
okay.
How long does it actually take a Bitcoin transaction to process for you? I mean, not in the technical sense, but your TIAS.
3 days.
No.
No.
So they say,
Oh,
pay by Bitcoin, you know.
Well, it depends on if my best call. For help. So on the whole, I would say it probably takes about 5 to 10 minutes.
Takes a while. But,
Yeah. And that's because of the novelty of it.
Mm.
That there's always a different staff that's doing it for the first time, and always the first time person who gets it. A credit card transaction, you're in and out in a minute.
Everyone knows how to do it.
Yeah, right. Everyone knows how to do it. You just swipe it, you punch in the number, you punch in the last 4 digits, and then you turn it off and put it back. Now you don't have another minute a little bit later when you have to put in a tip. So 2 minutes. With a Bitcoin transaction, there's a lot of talk that happens, explaining the process. Usually the customers have not done this before, or just not familiar with it. Even the folks that are mining Bitcoins or writing the Bitcoin software haven't done an actual person-to-person exchange.
Mm.
They do everything online. So I would say a typical Bitcoin transaction would be 4 to 5 minutes, because it's always first time. Now, if it was somebody that we actually did have had the UCSC fellow that came down, he's come back 2 or 3 times, and it goes much more smoothly now, because he knows what's expected of him. Our person knows what's expected of them. So they say, okay, I put in the number here. I say request payment. There you go. Click, and then 10, 15 seconds for network stuff, and then bloop. Thank you very much. So that's the ideal case. The ideal case would be a minute or so, but even that minute is going to be painful for a quick service coffee shop or something like that.
Right.
I wouldn't argue that it's a bad thing, just in a customer service point of view, that you get an opportunity to have another sort of more intimate conversation with a customer in terms of, connecting with them.
Talking to a person, not to a credit
Well, when you're helping someone with their first time doing a Bitcoin transaction,
Yeah,
that's a pretty intimate bonding
Yeah.
experience.
And conversation point about, oh, how did you get into Bitcoin? And,
Yeah.
what do you do? And how's it working for you? And,
yeah.
How much data is moving during the transaction?
very, very little. The transaction itself is less than 400 bytes. So It's literally a 40 byte Bitcoin address, the dollar amount or Bitcoin amount, which is a 15-digit number or so, significant digits, a text description, which is about 100 characters, and some signature data, which is probably another 100 bytes. That's what gets transmitted to Coinbase, and what goes through that QR code. The QR code that I showed here, and I don't know if you're familiar with the information density of that QR code, it's fairly low. So that QR code is probably carrying 70 bytes.
So you're not, when you generate the QR code, that's not network dependent.
The QR code is only network dependent in that it needs to go look up the current conversion rate of US dollars to Bitcoin. So I, the merchant, put in US dollars, $25 is the request payment.
Okay, then it does a lookup,
And I
and
push
then it
button.
generates the code on
Right,
board.
right.
So that's probably in the hundreds of bytes too then.
Tops, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it does a lookup of that dollar conversion rate, and you're right, that from that point forward, from the merchant side, we're just waiting for confirmation to come to network.
So the delay is in the processing.
The delay is in the customer has to scan the QR code, recognizes it, that can take 10 or 15 seconds.
No, I mean, when you said it takes a period of time, 10 seconds or something,
Mhm.
for once the customer hits send,
Right.
for you to confirm.
Right.
And the time is mostly the processing on the server side.
Yes, particularly if the customer's processor is not the same as your processor. If both of us are Coinbase,
Yeah.
they'll clear in 3 seconds. If your processor is BitPay and my processor is Coinbase, it might take more like 15, 20 seconds,
Okay.
just because they have to go talk to intermediaries. And that confirmation, is just acknowledgement that the transaction arrived. It has not been put into a block, it has not been confirmed yet. But if you're using a back payment service, they take that.
So I'm going to close out the video now with the final round of applause for Danny.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.